Come, my friends, 'tis not too late to seek a newer world, for my purpose holds to sail beyond the sunset. And though we are not now that strength which in old days moved heaven and earth, that which we are, one equal temper of heroic hearts, made weak by time and fate, but strong in will, to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield. A warm welcome, everyone. My name is Glenn Moore. Welcome to the first in this series of new podcasts. I am delighted today to introduce our first interviewee, namely Neil Carter. Now, I first met Neil at a social gathering nearly 3 years ago, and that gathering included a sharing circle. And Neil revealed very openly and unflinchingly that he had incarnated here as an extraterrestrial soul from the Andromeda Galaxy. Wow. As the evening ended, a curious and very enthusiastic crowd assembled around him, wanting to know more. And Neil answered their questions calmly, politely, and congruently. I was fascinated to know more. I have since been fortunate to meet Neil one-on-one on a number of occasions, and I eventually persuaded him to allow a wider audience to hear his story. And that is our purpose today. Neil describes himself as an ET Andromeda Starseed, an explorer and a visitor. But there is much more to him, as we shall hear. Neil, welcome to our podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm privileged and honored.
You're very welcome. Now, Neil, we know you have an amazing story to tell. Where would you like to start? What sort of awareness did you have of your situation during your early childhood?
Early childhood, I didn't really sort of have a full awareness, but I knew that there was something going on in the background. But growing up as a young kid, I kind of thought it was something spiritual. But it wasn't until actually later on in years when I had an out of body experience that I got a full picture of what my childhood was about, which included the knowledge about being incarnated in as an extraterrestrial in a human body and having full connection to that, to my star family. But my sort of parents weren't too keen on that. I was talking to people that weren't there, and they were a little bit concerned about that. And so it was very quickly suppressed, and that connection from then on was broken until, like I say, later on in years when I had this out of body experience.
And when did you come to, have the sort of full realization? Was there a run up to that? And how did that manifest?
Not really. It was just, like I say, primarily it was the out of body experience when I met my star family or members of my star family and my spiritual team that I fully understood afterwards that this was the reality of me and my kind of answered questions that I'd been asking myself growing up as a young man, sort of early teenage years, going through school and such like, where I knew that there was something different about me, but I couldn't actually put my finger on it. And there was incidents, what would you call it? Some phenomena that was happening to me from time to time, and I put that down to there was some kind of spiritual occurrence happening, but I wasn't fully aware of what was happening or what it was all about until after that sort of primary contact that happened by my star family.
And are you able to elaborate for us a little bit on what that primary contact, how it manifested itself, how it came about?
Well, I was actually working away overseas at the time, and I was uh, in a small village, in a small flat by myself. It was very quiet, it was very peaceful. Um, and I'd been to work, came home one evening, went to bed as usual, and I was woken up in the early hours with the whole bed vibrating, and my whole body was vibrating at a really sort of high vibrational sort of kind of like holding onto a vacuum cleaner almost. It's that kind of vibration. Um, but I'm quite a sort of analytical, sort of down to earth, sort of nuts and bolts kind of person. And I just kind of dismissed it in the morning that it was just, I don't know, something that happened for whatever reason. Maybe there was something wrong with my body, I don't know. But then the following evening, when I came home from work, I just sat down after dinner. I didn't have a TV. I was just listening to the radio, and I was really relaxed, just sitting there listening to the radio. And I got a really sort of strange sensation in my chest, and that vibration was sort of there as well. And I felt this pulling, this sensation of being pulled backwards into the chair. As I'm being pulled backwards into the chair, my sort of vision and consciousness is kind of just melting away a little bit, and I could hear the radio still playing, but it was getting lower and lower and lower and softer until eventually I couldn't hear it anymore. But I found myself in another room, um, and there was no color. It was all sort of grayed out, all bluey, gray colors. But I found myself sitting on another chair or a bed of whatever some description, and right in front of me was a doorway, and I'm just so confused at that point because I'm still me. I'm still conscious. I'm still able to look around. I'm still thinking, but I'm wondering to myself if I've just passed away. Have I
Mhm.
just have I just died, or what has just happened? Because
Yeah.
one minute I was there listening to the radio, and now I'm completely somewhere else, and it's a bizarre sort of situation. Um, I wasn't frightened. My heart was pounding quite a bit, but just purely I felt confused. Um, so got up and headed towards the doorway in front of me. And as I got through the doorway, I found myself at the top of a landing of stairs. So again, I'm looking round the stairs, and the stairway went around at an angle and then further down. So as I'm looking down from above, I can see a person sitting on the stairs, about halfway to three-quarters way down. And so I made my way down the stairs, and as I'm getting close to this person, I kind of had to shimmy sort of past them on the stairs. But I didn't really pay much attention to them for some reason. Got to the very bottom, and there was a couple of more doorways, and so I'm looking in all these doorways, and the rooms are just all blacked out. There's nothing in there. again, I'm just so confused as to what is happening. Where am I? What's, you know? And I turned around, and as I turned around, obviously there's this person sitting on the stairs, and immediately they were in full color, absolute beautiful color. And because everything was sort of grey, blue, and blacked out and everything, that they stood out so much. And I just remember looking at this lady, and she had the most beautiful golden hair to about shoulder length here, and it kind of flicked up at the shoulders. And she had beautiful pale complexion, bright red lips, and then our eyes connected, and it was whoa. And there was just instant connection with these amazing, amazing blue eyes. They were just so piercing. And the love that I felt was incredible. It's very it's very difficult to describe that level of love that I felt. And in this instant connection, she kind of, well, in that knowing, she knew everything about me, everything that I'd ever done, everything that I'd ever said. And it was just, I mean, I instantly in that moment thought she must be an angel. It was just beyond description, really. Of how can you describe something like that? It's beyond human language to some extent. And from there, she got up, and there was a telepathic connection where she wanted me to follow her, and so I followed her through another doorway, and it entered out into what I'll probably describe either a garden or a park of some description. But it looked like a beautiful summer's evening. It was quite dark, but not dark that I couldn't see, but the sky was littered with stars, and it was just incredible. Like, just a perfect starry night. And the ground was quite crunchy for some reason. I don't know why that was, but it was almost like a frosty, like when you're walking on frost, the really harsh sort of crunchy, frosty sort of sensation or sound. And from there, I looked out, and she's directing my sort of consciousness to this park, and I could see that there were other beings in this park, and there were some beings off to the far left here, and then there were a couple of beings off to the far right, and the ones off to the left, they were a very tall, bright. They didn't really have, I would say, a form to them. They were more like a pillar of light or energy, and there was two of those onto the left, and then there was a couple of beings off to the right here. But again, I could make out the shape, but I couldn't make out the face or anything like that. And then there was a download, or what we could call it, a download of information from
Yeah. Even while you're talking there, it's like palpable, the energy and the experience, and even coming through is the love that you felt for this individual. Um, and you mentioned before the recognition of who the individuals were and the other beings. Do you want to share a little bit more on that?
Well, yeah, I was just about to say that you say it's palpable. I mean, even now, after 20 years after this happened, it's still so vivid in my mind, and the sensation in that instant connection, I will never forget. Sorry, just repeat your question. What did you say?
Yeah. No, sorry. I can feel you getting lost in the moment of that because it is
Yeah, yeah.
listening to you talk about it, you radiate it coming through. um my question was about just the being who was on the stairs. You mentioned before the recognition of who they were and who the other beings that was also there outside with you.
Yeah. Well, it turns out that the lady is my mother from my home star nation.
Mm,
But she'd appeared in that particular estate, in that particular form, because it was deemed more appropriate for this interaction, because they didn't want to frighten me, because we look extremely different to humans. So it was uh, um, a form that she uh, undertook to present herself, to be a little, not to frighten me, to be more conducive to the
mm,
interaction. Uh, and yeah, the other beings was that were present at that time. It was a quick introduction to who my team were. I did my Star Nation guides,
mhm,
my angelic guide. I had two angels who are one is Archangel Michael, and the other one is a angel, uh, predominantly female in energy, called Zolna. I don't know her name, but
mhm,
she's a really beautiful energy. Um, and yeah, the other two, the other ones are my guides. I have one called Daisy, and the other one called the Lactern, which is another extraterrestrial, but it's obviously my contact.
mhm. And you just mentioned very briefly there how from Andromeda you look very different from the incarnation here on planet Earth. Would
Yeah, I'm
you,
not
would you like
different.
would you like to share with us, the audience, just what you
Sure.
do?
Yeah, it's well,
Yeah,
we
without
are.
frightening us, Neil.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm joking.
We're predominantly humanesque,
Yeah.
i.e., we have a head and torso, arms, hands, legs, and feet, etc. But the face, we only have one eye, which is here. There is no hair. There are no ears as such, as in like earlobes and things. There's a small opening where what we would consider the nose to be, and the mouth. And I always describe it this way, but it's more like a fish mouth
Hmm.
that can move and pouts, come sort of in and out. So yeah, very very different in that respect.
Very different.
But the body wise is very very pale, very very pale skin. Uh, your typical sort of grey alien type, looking else, I would say. But yeah, facial wise is very different.
And would you say it's translucent, the skin, or
It's not translucent, no. It's more of like
opaque?
more like baby skin. Yeah, it's more like baby skin. It's very pale,
Hmm.
uh, very. Um, yeah, that's one way I can describe it. It's very sort of baby skin looking. It's very soft looking, um, like a off whitey creamy color. And
Yeah.
yeah,
And you mentioned the communication, it was telepathic, certainly with
yeah.
the.
Everything is telepathic in our civilization. How they communicate together because it's a collective um, society where everyone is connected together. Um, I don't want to say hive uh, civilization, but everybody is connected into each other telepathically.
Mm,
So, but there's no, we're all individuals. We're all, individual sort of beings, but we all connect in together for the sort of greater good of the whole species, the whole
mm,
society.
lovely. So do you think that, because obviously as humans, we rely on hearing and smell and speech to communicate, eye contact. Is any of that similar? Do you have hearing? Do you have smell?
There are here, and yeah, we've got those sensors as well. But when you sort of are able to communicate telepathically, there's so much more um, information in that communication than just the normal sort of senses of touch and hearing and all that stuff. There's a lot
Mm,
more information conveyed in that telepathic connection. Uh, so yeah, they still have some sort of residual sort of senses there, as in see, hear, and uh, well, I think they can still smell. I don't know that, but
hmm
but the telepathic connection, that connection is a lot more, sort of,
Is it like a higher quality of communication,
yeah,
Neil?
yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot more that can be
hmm
felt in that connection, that communication. Yeah.
And you mentioned you received a download during your first meeting?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was all to do with sort of who I was, and what the world is about, and what's happening in the world, and how it functions, and how it works, and um, 'cause you can imagine at that sort of time, 2004, this happened, so 20 years ago. There was a lot going on in the world. Um, so it, it had to understand that reality, as I'd always known it, is not the real reality of what we experience. So that took me a while to get my head around.
hmm So you obviously had this awakening and connection to your home planet, home beings.
Well, it, 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 it was an awakening in that sense, yeah, but it was also a re-establishing of that connection because,
You'd
like I
already.
mentioned before, the connection had been lost
Mm,
after early childhood because it had been kind of you know suppressed, and I wasn't allowed to sort of be myself by my parents. And then obviously you go through the human sort of programming of school and going to college and all that kind of stuff, high school, and normal human sort of programming, I suppose, um, kind of knocked all that connection on the head. And that's what they were after. They were needing uh, to re-establish this connection with me, so that they could um, get to what they needed from me in this experience here on planet Earth.
Hmm. And why do you think they chose the particular time that they did to reconnect with you?
I think it was just the right time at the right moment, um, energetically, and it was I was in a place where I was quite relaxed and maybe open to it a little bit. Didn't have my family with me. I was maybe it was just an easy time for them to come in. I'd say right place, right time. I think that they probably orchestrated in the first place.
Hmm.
I didn't really have to go overseas to do this job, but it came up, and I ummed and ahed a little bit, and I kind of volunteered to do it. So I think a little bit of that was them orchestrating me to be at that place at that time for this to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And that vibration, the vibrating bed and the vibrating body, the night before was their energy raising my energy for the out of body experience to occur, because they reside at a higher vibrational state than what we do. So it's very difficult for them to come down to our vibrational state. So that evening, that night prior, was to raise my vibration in preparation for the next evening for that to occur, because they're
Yeah.
trying to match the vibration between myself and them. Very
Yeah.
difficult for them to come down to the. Well, I don't. When you're in the fifth dimension, it's very hard to lower your vibration to come down to this one. So we have to raise our vibration up to try and meet with them.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. 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 It's easier for us to raise up and clear ourselves than
Yeah,
actually them to come down into a solid form.
yeah.
Yeah.
They
Um,
don't, they don't want to come down there. They don't want to come down to this vibration.
yeah. You touched very briefly there, just on what it is your purpose is and what they've communicated, why you're here. Do you want to elaborate some more onto that?
Oh yeah. Well, they, like I say, they needed to reestablish this connection again, because my mission here is to help them um, gather a lot of information, a lot of data, and to have a human experience whilst doing that, so that they can look at the possibility of making some kind of connection with Earth and everyone here at some point. They're looking for some kind of assistance as well, and maybe a mutual exchange uh, information and help and assistance. And so through me having this experience, incarnating in, they can draw on a lot of this human experience, the information of what it is to be human, um, and hopefully make some kind of connection in the future. They're very cautious at the moment,
Mm,
but they're a very very loving, very benevolent civilization, and they understand how being human is very complex, and somewhat, you know, very difficult to what they are like. So they're trying to get an understanding of what it is to be human, and what makes human tick, really. Um, so that if and when they do show up, they've got a better understanding of how to approach and meet and greet, and how humans sort of react and uh, things like that, because there's a lot of emotions within the human species that we don't have. Uh, like I said, they're a very high vibrational sort of civilization. So they don't have this same emotional spectrum, the emotional range that humans have. So they're trying to understand that. So like I say, when they do show up, they have a better understanding.
And do you think that, I mean, obviously through this data gathering through yourself and getting this awareness and understanding, do you think that they will come down to planet Earth in a larger quantity? Because I believe it's just yourself at the moment.
Yeah, no pressure.
Yeah.
I'm the only one
One.
from the ET family that is here at the moment. I mean,
Yeah.
um, yeah, we've had some trauma. I'm sure they. It's difficult to know at this stage, but I'm pretty sure that they will, um, because they are looking to make this connection, and they know that the human race, is going through a difficult time of awakening, and that they're able to see the potentials of where humans are going. And we've had our difficulties uh, back in the physical fifth dimension. Our planet is at the moment uninhabitable due to some very regressive other beings. So the planet at the moment is uninhabitable, and it's in the process of re-healing and being rehabilitated. But they're all on board a large ship at the moment. So as you can imagine, they're looking for somewhere to make a connection with for help or assistance, and some kind of mutual connection.
Hmm. And do you think that connection will be here on Earth, or do you think that will be with another extraterrestrial planet?
I think that it will happen here.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. They understand, like I say, that it's a difficult time at the moment, but they do understand the potential of where the human race is going, and I think that they will uh, end up coming back here. But
Mm.
what will happen is that once my mission is complete here, I will return back to my ET Star Nation and deliver this experience of being a human uh, in all its glory, so that they will get the full uh, perspective of what it is to be human.
Hmm.
Because they can get, obviously they get a sort of a global overview of what's happening on the planet and what humans are about, but it's this grassroots detail that they're looking at, and trying to understand, like I said, this emotionality of what it is to be human, the emotional spectrum. Because, like I said, they don't have a lot of the emotions that we have.
Yeah.
They don't have anger. They don't have hate.
Hmm.
But they're trying to sort of look at um, what is that, how does that emotion work, and how are humans triggered by that kind of emotion, so that they can better understand. Um, you know,
Yeah. It's very refreshing. It's just to even hear this, that other star nations are more benevolent and don't have these range of wild emotions that, we have here on planet Earth. Yeah. Most
yeah,
people,
I mean, it's very complex being a human being, and they understand that.
yeah.
Yeah, it's it's an interesting sort of concept, I suppose, isn't it? You know?
Yeah, but also just very refreshing to hear. You mentioned when you first met them, they downloaded quite a lot to you about where you're from, your star nation. Sorry, I keep calling it planet, but star nation.
Mhm.
Um, do you want to elaborate more on this download and just some of the details that they shared with you?
Well, they basically told me about my childhood and about the connection being lost, etc., and told me about what the mission would be. I can just explain. Um, they introduced me to my contact, which is a being called Lactern. He is my contact. Obviously, speaks on behalf of everybody, the collective. Um, and that I'd given him this name prior to incarnating in, because as we're a telepathic um, species, we don't have labels for anything. It's not required. We don't need it because we know what the information is just by connecting to each other.
Mm-hmm.
So I gave him the name Lactern prior to incarnating in so that I would have a reference point of who I was speaking to. They told me that I am from the Andromeda Galaxy and that basically they just gave me an overview of the mission here really and who I was, and that I chosen, volunteered, or being volunteered to incarnate into the planet and and do it really on
Mm-hmm.
behalf of everyone. It's just something that um, I seem to do a lot. Bit of an explorer, so I was the optimal choice, really, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. So, do you feel that you've done this before, or is planet Earth the first other star nation or galaxy that you've gone into?
I've been to other planets before, apparently, but I've never been to Earth before.
This was.
Humans have many lifetimes on Earth and reincarnate into Earth and have a whole soul journey here. But I've never been human before on Earth. I have been a canine, believe it or not, but I've never been human. So this is a whole new experience for me, and they find it quite um, unusual to see me in this human body. They find it quite funny.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Very different.
but yeah, I've never been human before, so it was quite well. They knew it'd be quite challenging, uh, so I was lucky enough to choose. As they tell me in the download, I was lucky enough to choose my team, my spirit team. So I have, like I said, before, I have Archangel Michael, um, and another angel called Zolna, who looks after my sort of health and well-being and such like.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have another guide called Daisy. Um, she was actually my uh, best buddy as a canine when I was here.
Mm-hmm.
So this is going back to the 18th century. I think it's 18th or 16th. I can't remember now. But we were very small dogs, sort of like the Chihuahua sort of size, I think. But we were pampered to death. But when Daisy was already in the household um, for me, and I was a new dog brought into the household, and we didn't get on together at all. She didn't like me one bit, but as time went on, we really gelled together and really got on together, and we ended up being sort of best pals. And so she's on my team, and she helps me with relationships and meeting people and that kind of thing. She helps me with form, sort of relationships with people, helps me to form relationships with people in that way.
Mhm.
But
I have,
sorry,
sorry, carry on.
I was going to say more recently, my father has joined my spirit team,
Mm.
and he passed away about six, seven, 7 years ago now. But he is now on my team because what I found out from a medium that I went to see, that he has regrets about that part of my life as a child when I was growing up. Uh, he now understands in the spirit realm what I was all about. I was a very spirited child, and they didn't understand that spirited part of me and that connection that I had at the time. So he has regrets about that, and so has taken it upon himself to join my spirit team, and wants to almost form a new relationship with me now, which is really nice. Really,
Yeah, that's very beautiful.
Mm.
The insights that I've gained,
yeah,
also precious for you, having had that been suppressed within you as a child, and
yeah,
it's not,
yeah,
not acceptable in this world in their eyes. And yeah,
yeah, yeah.
father come
I mean,
through.
I think it comes from he was very sort of unfulfilled in his life, as well, and he was very um, not controlling, but he wanted everything to be very organized and
Mhm.
kind of thing. So yeah, he understands now. Um, uh,
Neil, can I come in there and just
oh,
ask, going back to your purpose briefly? I mean, I guess people watching this may be curious, in the sense that what you said earlier would suggest that you're not really proactive in monitoring human events or global events. Is that right? I mean, you said your purpose was just to have the experience of a human incarnation.
yeah.
But you've also described yourself as an observer. So is there how much is it is observing and how much is just being? Let's put it that way.
Um, I think it intertwines together.
Mm.
My experience here, enables me to um, observe on a daily basis other humans and things that go on in society and things that go on in my workplace, and so they like me to look at all facets of human life, not just be around awakened and enlightened people like yourself, but also to the not so awakened and the not so enlightened people who are
Mm.
still asleep, and to observe the whole sort of spectrum of what it is to be human, uh, so that they can gather that data and extract the information what they need, uh, And I suppose using me as a sort of human barometer as to what's happening in the world, and where people are at.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't need to be interactive in a direct sense. Is that what you're saying?
Not really. They do like me to be slightly, I don't want to say disconnected, but what's the word I'm looking for? I don't give my energy to any sorts of patterns or belief systems or anything like that. I'm not attached in that way. So it allows me to observe from that perspective where I'm not actually in it, but I'm looking at it from a perspective that allows me to look at the whole picture of it. And then they can get that information and that perspective. Because otherwise I would be lost in it. I would be lost in it. And that would kind of jeopardize that connection again.
Mm-hmm.
Because my energy would be lost in it. So I need to stay somewhat disconnected from things so that I can remain in that vibrational state and look at things in an analytical sort of frame of mind and gather the data and the information that they need.
And would you say that even like during the period from when you were suppressed as a child up until they made contact, were you also in that space of detachment and witnessing rather than being heavily involved in what's going on in the world or wrapped up in emotions of the human?
Yeah, I think I was wrapped up in the human emotions of things and the human programming, which they found frustrating because they're trying to make this connection, and the human body has its own vibrational state and its own internal sort of defense mechanism. So when they were trying to connect in with me during the, the sleep time, which is when they come in, my body's natural defenses was fighting it off because their high vibrational energy was trying to tap into my energy, and my body's going, no, thank you, and fighting it off. So they were struggling to make that connection with me. So they had to orchestrate this out of body experience to create this new connection, this new awareness, and this new awakening so that they could reestablish this connection and this mission.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but yeah, I was as asleep, oblivious to the connection, but there was things going on that I didn't understand or I couldn't figure out or um, I couldn't put my finger on what it was. It was almost like sometimes, I was looking at the world through a window. I wasn't really in the world. I didn't really fit in anywhere specific. Um, and I just felt like I was looking at the world through this window all the time,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes quite confused about the world and the way that it was, and asking questions about myself. You know, most people do. I
Mm-hmm.
suppose. But yeah, I was kind of in the mix of it, like everybody, and in that human programming, a little bit lost, lost my way.
Mm-hmm.
through all the human programming. But like I say, I knew there was something. There's something there that but I just couldn't. Like I say, I just couldn't get to what it was.
Yeah, I'm wondering how many of our listeners are actually thinking that that resonates with them completely too, and are now potentially questioning.
Yeah, well, this is the
Yeah.
thing, I mean, there's so many people out there that will be having the same experience that I've had, and they will be in contact with extraterrestrials. But
Hmm.
it's so bizarre that how can it be possible that you're an extraterrestrial or you're connecting to extraterrestrials? It's just so far off in the you know in the sci-fi, isn't it?
Yeah.
Um, but there are so many people out there that will be having a similar story or situation to me, who are potentially denying it or are not aware of it, that it's happening to them. So yeah, this is I wouldn't say it's unique, because there are so many extraterrestrials here on planet Earth at this moment in time,
Hmm.
connecting with people, and there are so many people who are incarnated in Earth as extraterrestrials who are unaware of being an extraterrestrial, but they are working intuitively.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's so much happening.
So, for anybody that is going through a process that sounds very similar to yours, what one bit of advice could you give them to either potentially help support them raising up their vibration, or even just to from a support perspective with what they're going through?
Yeah, I would certainly say, well, don't deny it, and acknowledge it is the first thing.
Hmm.
Acknowledge what is happening to you. Acknowledge um, anything. There are things happening around you, that you can't explain. Acknowledge it, and get into a space of meditation, and try to connect with whatever may be trying to connect with you, whether it's a spirit team or with an extraterrestrial team. But meditation is key. Going into that calm state and being able to raise your vibration, to a point where uh, maybe that connection is going to
Hmm.
for you. But it's worth exploring. But don't definitely do not deny what is happening to you if you're experiencing things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Try and embrace it.
Yeah, and have trust in yourself. Have trust. Uh, there are beings, that teams that you come into this experience with that are here to help you. They're possibly trying to connect with you as well. So this is the time now on planet Earth, where this is happening, and it's real. It's real. Um, so if you can, yeah, acknowledge it. Try and get into that meditative space. Raise your vibration.
Hmm. Thank you.
Yes, fabulous advice, Neil. Sadly, we're coming towards the end of our agreed time, but I just wondered whether, Neil, given the current, let's call it, state of the world, state of Earth as you see it at the moment, what do you think is the most important thing for people to focus on? We've had a lot of people talking about focusing on the future, which I think is a great thing. You've mentioned trust and so on. What would you see as potentially the benefit to humanity going forward? What can we do to create this better world that we're all working towards?
Well, definitely, like I've just mentioned there, focusing within yourself, and finding that connection to yourself, allowing that to come up, and raising your vibration, and knowing that there is no need to be fearful of anything, no need to be frightened, because we are all light beings coming here into the planet, having this experience, and we've all volunteered to come and do this at this time, to move planet Earth forward in this process. So don't be fearful, embrace it. Yes, there's serious things happening on the planet, but we're heading in a direction that is going to be amazing.
Mm.
For humans and for ETs. Look forward to it.
Yeah, it's very reassuring to hear this, especially at the time that we're in at the moment. Yeah, very much.
Absolutely, yeah.
Mhm.
Sorry, Neil, go on.
Yeah, I just said focus on the positive. And don't be drawn into a lot of the negative stuff that is happening around the world. Because, you know, energy flows where attention goes. So try not to get wrapped up in all the negativity that's happening around the planet. That's very easy to get drawn into that. So try and remain in a higher vibrational state as possible. Focus on yourself, focus within, and connect with other people as well, like we're doing. You know, it's happening now. It's happening, and it's become more prevalent. You can see it around the world. More and more people are waking up. It's just that we're in this process at the moment that is very difficult, but we're heading into somewhere really good.